Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. We're looking forward to the new year. It's been a reasonably tough year this year. When we entered the spring period, it's probably the first time that I can remember in my 62 years on the planet that the market has had an extraordinary amount of excess stock, and especially here in Victoria. That's not due to more properties coming on the market. That's due to buyer interest dropping right off. So without berating the government, state or federal, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and the banks have affected that a bit too with the amount of equity credit going into the market, which is reduced. But I think overall, there's a couple of things we need to take into account. There's going to be over 500,000 people moving into Victoria in the next 12 months. 30% of those people are going to go regional. What we know out of that is about half of those 30% generally stay in the first regional city or town that they get moved to. So there's going to be some growth in those areas. What I do also know is that we're in what I call a transitional market right now. We're in a market where people are starting to review their lifestyle in relation to enjoyment and a passive enjoyment of their realm or their abode. And what that means is this, is that we're getting detached house buyers looking at townhouses. We're getting townhouse buyers looking at apartments. And we're finding that some apartment buyers that feel restricted in relation to the size of the apartments, what they're doing now is they're looking for other quarter, so to speak. What does that mean? That actually means that there's a very large attrition of apartment buyers moving semi-regional to get a larger block, a cheaper property, and a more passive or a calmer lifestyle. But on the other hand, we're now getting all the baby boomers that are downsizing that are in my era that are two dwelling owners. So they have a city dwelling and they have some regional dwelling. Generally speaking, there's about 80% of the people that will own an apartment in Melbourne that are in my vintage will have a second abode in the Bellarine Peninsula, Bass, Gippsland, whatever it may be, or, King Valley, etc. And they'll look for that secondary lifestyle to get that calm, back to nature, earthy type thing. That's becoming quite prevalent. Now, that will become more prevalent as the migration continues to flow into this state. So, a few things really matter to affect the market next year in a very positive light. The first thing, as I said, is migration. The second thing is that the public have a belief or a perception that the government is either going to change or it's going to change their policies in relation to looking after the constituents in the state. When that happens, you will find there'll be a lot more faith, because people buy on faith and they buy on perception and they buy on belief of what could be in the next year, 2 or 3. Most people still want to stay around their family. So if you believe any of the things that I've said, there's a few things, and if you're a real estate agent, this is extremely important for you. You need to believe this. You need to believe that you should be listing property right now. If you're listing predominantly auction properties, you should be listing property right now for auctions mid to late February. They need to be listed now and they need to be prepped. So you've got a fair good run before you release them to the market in mid-January. So when people say that the market stops over Christmas, it doesn't. What actually happens is that with our migration philosophy right now, we have a very large mix of a lot of foreigners now, Indians, Asians, Sri Lankans, etc. A lot of those people will still buy and procure an asset over the Christmas period. And that is procured either by a forthcoming auction type scenario or a private sale scenario. So for you agents, you need to list now. Next year is looking good. I believe that the second quarter of next year, you're going to see a fairly quick and major uplift in price. And that will be due to the fact that the buyer level or the buyer inquiry or the buyer interest actually elevates. So at present, we've got roughly the same amount of stock we had last year and we have low buyer interest. that will change when people become more confident.